Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. Hello everyone, how are we doing today? It is, number 18? 18? I think?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah, number 18, that sounds about right. Hey, number 18.
That's what you put in the title.
Yeah, well, I think I checked. This is the 18th episode. Apologies for there not being a podcast last week. My TV decided to die on me the night before while I was editing a video, which really sucked. But that's my life. So, yeah, the mouthing is off. Oh, okay. Bear with me. Sorry about this, guys. We'll get to it. I thought it was alright, but apparently not. That's not on, so... Why is that not working? Okay, I don't know what's going on here.
Oh, he's broken it already, guys.
I've literally done nothing! Wait, if I turn it off and on
Have
again,
you got a
no.
mic delay on? And
I shouldn't do, no.
yeah, okay, I don't know. Anyway, so whilst he's fiddling about with that, we've got so much to talk about on today's Icing on the Skate podcast.
Chris. This is why I bring you onto the show every week to avert from my shit.
You're forgetting that in the when I do commentary, I normally have to fill about 5 minutes of randomness.
While is that basically my live streams?
So yes, we've got plenty to talk about. Oh, apparently there's an echo or something. We've got plenty to talk about on today's Icing on the Skate podcast. We've got everything coming up from around the British Elite Ice Hockey League. So we've got all the scores and the standings. We're talking about the signings. We've had a retirement in the last couple of hours or so, and we've got some somewhat controversial on social media Department of Player Safety rulings. We're also going to talk about Colin Shields, the new highest point scorer in the Elite League. Before we go across the pond to the NHL, I need to call it the NIHL then, to the NHL, where we're going to go through all the standings there, talk about the trades, including some big ones for the Penguins, the Panthers, the Maple Leafs, and the Los Angeles Kings, as well as the Dallas Stars. And we're talking about the Stadium Series as well, and the jerseys, and some people are not too happy about the way the jerseys look. And then we're going to talk about the Brits abroad. So we've got Liam Kirk, who's currently on a 3-game point streak, and then we've got Tomo's DEL adventure. Before we look at the Fantasy League for isn't it the Odd Man Rush Hockey League? The OMRHL?
The Out, I think.
Oh, that's it, yeah, the OMOHL.
Something like that, yeah.
Something along those lines, yeah.
I have no idea why this is lagging like this. I do apologise. I thought I'd set everything up good for once, but then technology comes in and goes, nope. So here we are. My video sync delay isn't on, so I'm a bit confused. Apologies, guys. I'm going to keep talking. I can't be asked. We've got a podcast to do. So, I felt like I was listening to BBC News there with you, Chris. You're perfect for I was about to say presentator. Presenter, I think is the word I'm looking for.
It's just one of the things I'm trained in, so...
Very true. So, as Chris said, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Of course, because we missed last week, we've got a few extra different fancy bits of information to talk about. So...
is your YouTube muted, just thinking about it?
What's that?
Is your YouTube muted?
Is my YouTube muted?
In case it's coming through your speakers again, is all I'm thinking.
No, my YouTube is not muted. It shouldn't be echoing anymore. It's the delay that I'm worrying about.
Oh, right, okay. That's fine. Is it still echoing, guys? Anyway. Right, scores.
Should we do scores? Because there's 2 weeks worth, or should we go straight to the standings? I think we should go straight to the standings.
Okay, I was only going to do the scores from this week, but yeah, okay, standings.
Go to the standings.
Standings, right. So, we're into the nitty-gritty of... Apparently there is still an echo. We're into the... This is very professional, guys.
It's not. It's really not.
Is it both of us echoing, or is it just Oddman, or is it just me, or what? See if we can help us.
This is probably like some people's first experience with the... With the podcast.
We are better than this, guys.
It's gone proper tits up in it. Is it better than this usually? Is it?
Yeah, I suppose. While you're waiting, if you want to know how apparently it's just me that's echoing.
See, you're the problem.
Okay, why am I the problem then?
I don't know.
Everything's the same as how it normally is.
Right. Speak again.
Is it a way you've got me set up or something?
I tried to. Okay, it might have been the position of where my mic was. Okay.
Oh,
Try again.
Okay, we're going to try something along those sort of lines.
What's going on here?
Oh.
See, you see this new TV, it causes so many different problems for me.
I'm echoing from you, apparently. I don't know quite what the...
Sake. I can't hear you otherwise.
How? I thought the TV is literally just the screen. How is it any different to what you had before?
Good question.
Sorry about this. While we're waiting, if you want to know how an ice hockey broadcast is brought to you, go and check out one.
Classic plug. I mean, I could have done that for you, but yeah, by all means.
I put up a video a couple of days ago about how I commentate on ice hockey matches and the equipment I use and all the preparation I do beforehand. So if you go on my channel, you'll be able to see that. It's only about 7 minutes long. We should have it sorted by then.
I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed it. It was a really good thing. Just talk again for me, Chris.
I'm just going to keep talking, really, about...
Yeah, you are kind of echoing a little bit.
Okay, why am I echoing? Is it something I've done, or is it...
it's from my end. It's because I have to turn you up on my TV so I can actually hear what you're saying, but I think it's too loud so that it picks up on my mic as well.
Right.
Because my mic is literally, like, not that far away.
Right.
And I can't turn it down anymore, because otherwise I won't be able to hear a bloody word you say. And we've got a laggy webcam. I just don't know what to say. Let me play about with the webcam. Chris, just talk about the standings. Just leave me to wallow in my self-pity.
Right, well, just move your microphone away or something so that they don't hear me, so they don't hear the echo.
Move it any further.
Hello!
Okay, so I hope you guys can hear me all right if he's turned me down momentarily on his thing or something. So... top of the table is the Cardiff Devils. They've played 42. They've got 66 points. The Belfast Giants are in second, only 3 points behind them, also with 42 games played. The Nottingham Panthers still in third, but still with 5 games more played than anybody else. And Glasgow are in fourth, 52 points. Fife are in fifth, 42 games, 47 points. Guildford in sixth, 44 games and 46 points. Manchester in seventh, 44 games and 45 points. Sheffield are into the last playoff spot now with 44 points from 45 games. Dundee are in ninth, same amount of points. And they've actually got 2 games in hand, so that's 43 games for the Dundee Stars. The Coventry Blaze, 41 games played. They've played fewer games than anybody else in the league. They're on 43 points. And the Milton Keynes Lightning at the bottom, 44 games played and 26 points. So not good for the Milton Keynes Lightning, but plenty at the bottom of the Elite League table. Teams battling out for those bottom 4 playoff spots. Only 4 points separate Fife in 5th from Coventry in 10th.
Is it also... Is it bad that I think it's quite funny that Milton Keynes are on a 10-game losing streak? Like, that's not good.
Well, Milton Keynes have 32 points available, which would put them on 58, so they can't win the league.
Oh, what? And here we were
Milton
thinking
Keynes.
that they were the favourites.
But, I mean, they've got their, 18, so they've got to win 9 out of their last 16 games to stand a chance of making the playoffs. Sorry, Milton Keynes, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, never say never, obviously.
No, neither of us had Milton Keynes as the bottom team, can I just say that?
Did we not? Who did we have?
I had Glasgow, which has gone badly wrong. And you had Coventry, which is still fairly wrong.
Hey,
but
I'm not far off. Hey.
Yeah, but I said Dundee or Glasgow, so I've got 4th or 9th, and you said Coventry or Glasgow, so you've got 4th and 10th. So you're slightly better, but not by much.
So Sorry, there's a few new people in the live stream today. For those of you who don't know, this is a podcast. It's usually run a little bit better than this, but apparently the technical difficulties want to mess with us. I think I might have figured out the problem, but I'd have to stop the stream in order to sort it out. So we're going to carry on. We're going to soldier through.
I'm just looking at these predictions and realising how bad mine are.
And your fantasy team is great. Right? So, for those of you who don't know, we talk about the British Elite Ice Hockey League, which is our professional league here in the UK. We talk about news from the NHL, the interesting stuff we want to talk about. Basically, every single hockey outlet in the world talks about the NHL. So we kind of find the interesting stuff, the stuff we want to talk about. We talk about quite a lot of the mainstream stuff from the NHL, but more interesting stuff that we find and stuff that I don't make videos on, etc, etc. And we talk about the fantasy league that I have set up and some of the Brits, like Chris said, who are abroad doing other stuff. So regarding the standings, so how many games roughly do we have left? Like 18?
The majority of teams have 18.
Yeah, so about 18 games left. Now, Chris and I were having a conversation before this podcast, which was very interesting. We were talking about the Cardiff Devils and Belfast Giants, number 1 and 2 seeds. Cardiff, for those of you who don't know, have won the regular season. They've basically got the President's Trophy equivalent of the Elite League the last 2 years running, and it very much looks like they could get it for a 3rd year in a row, which is unheard of in the Elite Ice Hockey League. For a team to have a three-peat. I mean, it's difficult for any team in any sport, in any league around the world to three-peat something like that. But they're in a position to do so. And now they're tied in games, and Belfast are only 3 points down compared to the Cardiff Devils in 2nd place. And I remember Chris messaged me a couple of days ago, like, didn't we say that the Cardiff Devils basically had this locked down a couple of weeks ago?
We said if they won the double header against Belfast, and they pretty much had it locked down, and they won the double header against Belfast and looked as though they had it locked down, and now we look like we might have egg on our face.
To be fair, the reason why, well, yeah, actually, the exact reason why the Cardiff Devils are above Belfast is because they have 3 more overtime losses, which is their 3 points. So
yeah.
So I mean they've only lost 7 games. They're the only team that hasn't lost double digits in regulation time. 7 losses in regulation time over a 42 game span. That's incredible. But like the aforementioned Belfast Giants, they're on a 5-game winning streak, so they're doing really well for themselves at the moment. So yeah, it's still very much a 2-horse race. I don't think that's going to change at all. I mean, I still stand by what we said, that the Cardiff Devils, it's theirs to lose. And I know that's a really easy thing to say, because it's like, oh, well, they're in 1st place. Of course it's theirs to lose. Yeah, but that's not the point, you know? Like, they've been dominating this league for so long, for the last, well, almost 3 years, 3 seasons now. And we've mentioned several times before the packed schedule they've had. To be fair, Belfast have had a pretty busy schedule as well this year with the Continental Cup we've mentioned previously.
Yeah, but I mean, the Continental Cup, they had 3 games in the semi-final and it didn't start until November. And then, yeah, okay, they had 3 games in the final. So...
But that's 6 games.
Yeah, I suppose that is the same as Cardiff, isn't it?
It's the same as what Cardiff had, to be fair. However, I would argue the opposition for Cardiff was a lot more difficult.
Yes.
Especially given the teams that are in the Champions Hockey League, which, funny you should mention that, we'll talk about that later. So, yeah, that's the standings. I want to kind of rush past that because we've had a few problems to start up this stream. So, Cardiff and Belfast, still very much a 2-horse race. It's Cardiff's to lose, but Belfast, when the Belfast Giants go hot, they really go hot. And then in terms of the bottom of the standings, in terms of the playoff race, it's still very much anyone's game except for Milton Keynes. So
pretty much. I mean, as I said, 4 points separate Coventry in 10th and 5 in 5th, and Coventry have a game in hand. So I mean, that could easily change to 3 points between 10th and 5th.
And interestingly, Sheffield have played the most games out of all of those teams, and they're tied with Dundee, which is 1 space out of the playoffs. So
yeah, I mean, all Dundee and Coventry have to do is win one of their games in hand, and Sheffield are suddenly in 10th.
Exactly. And yeah, Coventry's got 4 games in hand on Sheffield as well. Yep. So they're very much on the with a good chance to jump back into the playoffs. I am really interested to see how the bottom of the table does. I'm more interested to see the teams that do and don't make the playoffs as opposed to the team that wins the league. Of course, I'll keep tabs on it, but it's kind of, well, when there's less of a, when most of the teams are already out of the league race, it kind of, it's not as interesting as seeing like 7 different teams going for the last playoff spots. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the news. Now, this one was released a little while ago. I don't think we talked about this one on the last podcast. I don't believe we did. I think this came out like the day after we did our previous podcast, because of course we didn't do one last week because my TV decided to die, and the new one obviously isn't doing the job at the moment. Thanks, TV. So the Sheffield Steelers announced that they had made a signing on January 22nd. So we're going back a ways. It's February now. They've had a couple of injury problems recently in the Sheffield Steelers organisation. So they decided to sign the Latvian defenseman, I believe, Silvestris Selikis. I probably didn't pronounce that very well, but that's the pronunciation I'm going with. So you're welcome. So he's a former Latvian under 16, under 18 and under 20 defenseman. He started the season with Zel Am C in the Alp Hockey League.
He didn't used to play for Mazgrev.
Did he play for Medvesac Zagreb? Who knows? Before moving to the Czech Third League, he spent time there with loads of teams over the border in Slovakia. And yeah, I don't have his stats on me. Do you have his stats on you?
I'm looking to get them. I mean, Elite Prospects is being slow at the minute, but
it's not a necessity. Like, that was just a quick one because it's so long ago. You know, like,
yeah.
He was on the list of people to talk about last week, but we didn't get around to it. So so the Sheffield Steelers add another defenseman. Hasn't helped their team recently. They're still very inconsistent. Nobody's really stepping up for them, which is a shame. But you know, there's some teams have got to be at the bottom of the standings, and it turns out this year it's probably going to be Sheffield. So then we move on to some news from the Belfast Giants, which I didn't actually see the league mention anything about. You know how with most of the transfers and most of the signings that are done in the Elite League, for those of you who watch the podcast quite a lot, I get most of my articles that I read talking about the new signings for each team via the Elite League website. I didn't see a single thing about this on the Elite League website. I had to go to the... this is an article from the BBC about it, so it kind of shows you like how under the radar this one went, to be honest. So the Belfast Giants announced that they have signed forward Jeff Smotherman for the remainder of the 18-19 season. Now, he's an American forward. He arrives in Belfast from the Iserlohn Roosters of the German DEL, who I believe recently played against Schweinsteiger and beat them. And he goes straight into the lineup. He played against the Nottingham Panthers on Sunday. He's from Oregon and he grew up in Massachusetts, so he's a New England guy. He's a big forward who will add offense to our team, and I know Giants fans will love his work ethic too, according to Giants head coach Adam Keefe. Actually, our fans will love hearing about the lengths Jordan has gone in order to be in Belfast for Sunday's big game against Nottingham. So he's joined the Belfast Giants for the remainder of the season. Did he score this weekend?
Yep.
Did he? There you go. Got a goal in his debut. So he's obviously got off to a good start for them. I mean, that game against the Panthers was mental. Like, it kind of seemed like people couldn't stop scoring, which is
especially at the end.
Well, especially at the beginning. I think 7 goals were scored in the first period alone. So Jesus.
It was something. And then at the end, there was like 4 goals in the last 2.5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But to be fair, on Belfast's side, most of them were empty netters, I think. So.
Yeah.
So, then we move on to the Department of Player Safety, everybody's favourite group in the Elite Ice Hockey League. The Department of Player Safety, they've decided to hand out some bans. They've brought the hammer down on some of the players in the league. And the players, so 2 of them came more from last week, and they, of course, are Janan Rissling and Lane Ulmer from the Nottingham Panthers and the Cardiff Devils, respectively, for the events that took place during the live game that the Panthers showed on their YouTube channel, which was a Saturday night showdown, I believe. So it's like last week. Fun fact, I've got more subscribers than the Panthers YouTube channel. Just want to put that out there. Which I was quite happy about, not going to lie. However, they get a lot more viewers on each live stream than I do. So Wrestling got a 6-game suspension for a check to the head, as well as it being... So the key points from it was contact to the head, reckless and endangering, unsuspecting victim, and Category 2 reckless, plus he is supposedly a repeat offender due to something he did earlier in the season. The hit that he delivered a check to the head was against Evan Mosey.
According to the Elite League, something he did in the future.
What's that?
Well, Category 2, reckless, plus repeat offender for head contact during the 2108/19 EIHL season.
Oh, wow. We did it 100 years in the future?
Apparently. And apparently seasons last almost 12 years now as well.
Can I... This is just a little gripe I have.
Can we proofread, please?
Ever spell check their articles before they release them? I really don't think they do. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, that wouldn't come up as a red squiggly line, would it? Because it's just numbers.
Yeah, fair. But then you would think that somebody would proofread it.
Oh well.
You'd think that's somebody's job.
Yeah, but if someone proofreaded it, we wouldn't have had an interesting thing to talk about on the podcast.
But to be fair, maybe maybe that's our job to proofread it for them. Maybe that's
just
what
send
this
them a
podcast
DM.
is for.
Can you just alter this?
Any mistakes on my rush? Oh yeah, got one. Yeah, perfect. So he got suspended 6 games. And I believe he served 2 games of that suspension already, if I'm not mistaken, because there were this weekend's games.
Yeah.
So he's got 4 games left. His hit was on Evan Mosey, who of course is a former Nottingham Panther, is with the Cardiff Devils now. So there was a lot of controversy, I think, to say the least, regarding the choice of player to hit. I mean, he wasn't deliberately going after him. It was just sort of a hit that happened in the heat of the moment. And Lane Ulmer, he left the player's bench to go and engage with Wrestling, and then a fight began, and I think Wrestling kind of dealt with Ulmer quite well. And the key points for that was he left the player bench, he was involved in an altercation, and he was a participant in a fight deemed avoidable. So he got suspended 3 games for that. So 9 games in total between these 2 players. And then I'll just quickly run through the other Department of Player Safety ban this week, which was February 3rd, so yesterday. The Coventry Blaze, Justin Hash, I think it's Hash, or is it Hatch? I don't know. Suspended for 2 games. He was suspended for 2 games. Does it say why? Tripping. Suspended 2 games for tripping. Key points. It was a knee-on-knee contact. It was deemed avoidable by the Department of Player Safety. And it was also seen as recklessly endangering Category 1 careless. So, obviously, by the sounds of it, a knee-on-knee hit. Knee-on-knee hits are really nasty. They can cause a lot of problems for players and can take them out of the lineup for a sustained period of time. So, yeah, Chris, either, any, all of these suspensions, go for it. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm just watching the footage from the tripping penalty, and it is a really bad contact. I'm not going to lie. The knee, sticks out, and there's absolutely nowhere for the Belfast player to go, and it is a dangerous hit. I mean, you've seen players given way more than 2 games for that.
Oh yeah, knee on knees are nasty, and it's not so much the suspension; it's the potential to injure somebody.
Yeah.
Like people can be out for months with a knee on knee injury because they're traveling at such speeds as well. It's like 2 brick walls coming together, essentially, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. And now the Riesling suspension.
I can tell you want to have a big chat about this, Chris. Go on, I'm ready.
Well, what I was going to say is that it's caused a lot of arguments and debates on social media. Let's put it that way.
Now,
I know.
Just to add, initially when I saw it, I didn't think it was a bad hit. I'm going to put that out there. I thought it was a shoulder-to-shoulder collision as opposed to a shoulder-to-head collision. To be fair, I haven't really looked at it that much since, but actually, you know what? I'm going to watch it now.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm going a bit on memory here.
So you talk about you go for it. I'm just going to mute this because I don't want it to come up on the. Yeah, there we go.
So, yeah, so you've got the only way of kind of properly determining this hit which is exactly what the Department of Player Safety has done, which is slow it down almost frame by frame.
Yeah.
When you watch it at full speed, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah.
However, when you slow it down frame by frame and you see that he turns into Mosey, he could have avoided it. But then in his defense, Mosey was in the slot. He's not going to give him a free shot.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's like I can kind of see it from both sides. I've just watched it again. I can kind of see it from both sides.
Yeah,
One,
I can.
Mosey needs to keep his head up. Like, that's your responsibility. Like, I know the NHL recently has had a very big issue of players turning into hits, especially along the boards. So they become hits from behind. And they try to get that checking from behind or roughing penalties. Like, so essentially, instead of like meeting the player head on if they've got the puck, they'll try and turn round at the last second. And the referees have basically been saying, you can't do that. You're not going to get a penalty for it because you're putting yourself in danger there. It's not as if the other player that doesn't have the puck is coming to go after you or cause a collision that is unfavourable. It's more the player with the puck. That's their responsibility to make sure they don't put themselves in danger like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think you could kind of say, hey, of course, what's his name? Mosey didn't turn away from the hit or anything. He got caught puck watching by the looks of it. I think if Mosey had seen Rissling coming, he would have made a move to... either would have taken the shot before the contact was made, or would have tried to make a move to get away from him. I think it's clear that Mosey didn't quite see Rissling coming. But at the same time, like we've said, they had to break it down like really far to get the exact sort of, determination on it. And it was a hit to the head, which of course isn't good. There's some people that said like, oh, like he's gone out, like you did so much damage to him, he's really, really injured, like it was really bad. I mean, of course those things can happen. Mosey looked shaken up from the play, but he wasn't unconscious from what I can remember. Excuse me. He got up quite quickly. Like, of course he had to be helped up, but I wouldn't say that he... I wouldn't be surprised... I'm trying to find the right words for this.
The fact that in the Department of Player Safety video, they literally have to zoom right in and go frame by frame.
Yeah.
Tells you that, that's how it was. I agree with many of the points that have been being said in the chat.
Yeah, we are reading the chat, by the way.
Yeah,
I'll add
we
that
are.
there.
It was a mistake, as Ben says.
Yeah.
In my view, he didn't intentionally go for the head because you can see how low he is when he's checking.
Yeah.
He's not up on his toes completely straight with the elbow or the shoulder out.
Yeah.
I also agree that with Max that you're not going to just let them have a free shot in the slot.
Yeah, and also like Max mentioned that he's Mosey's slightly shorter than Rissling. Like
you can see Rissling is not at his full height. Also, again with Max, the pass, it was almost a little bit like a suicide pass.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what that reminds me of is I did a video like last year of when Patrick Laine got a concussion, and it was an absolute suicide pass. Like just a case of the defenseman or the person that passed the puck to Laine, and very much in this situation to Mosey, didn't judge the situation too right. I'm not saying it's their fault by any means. No, not at all. I think do I think it deserves 6 games? No. I think this is just one of these freak accidents, Yeah.
And again, the same with when Rissling was a repeat, because they're showing obviously the Sheffield one to that as well.
Yeah.
He's not looking at the player when he elbows him in the face with the Sheffield one either, although he does have a little bit of a look a second or two before.
Yeah. I just want to point out, some people are saying that he was knocked out. Okay, I was going based off memory for that, so if he was knocked out, my mistake. I don't remember him being knocked out, but that's just me. I did watch it like a week ago, so it has been a little while.
At full speed, it looks shoulder to shoulder. When you slow it down, it's shoulder to head, but it's not. What's the? It's not obviously intentional. And when you look at it at full speed, he doesn't. What's the best way of saying it? He keeps on a straight line. Yes, he kind of cuts into the ice to stop and slow himself down to make the check, but he doesn't change direction.
Yeah.
He keeps on a straight. He's not followed him around the ice to try and make the contact. He's stayed on a straight.
But then again, you could argue that he had time to adjust himself to avoid the hit if he's going straight in a beeline. No, not necessarily beelining for him to make the hit, but if he was skating in that direction, heading in that direction, that he had the opportunity to go, oh, okay, something bad might happen here, I can change it, you know. The one thing I will say is, like you mentioned, the fact that it took them to go frame by frame and zoom in really far. That's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's really good that the Department of Player Safety is being this thorough with something like this. Like, that's great. The fact that we've had instances in the past, and some might argue over this season as well, that the Department of Player Safety isn't thorough enough, or it doesn't do its due diligence, or it doesn't investigate certain things enough, or as much as it could do. The fact that it's doing it on this scenario, I think, is brilliant. Like I said, quite a lot of people thought that was a shoulder-to-shoulder collision. If the technology shows you that it was in fact a check to the head, then great, yeah, that needs to be known, you know. But also on the other side, it's like on the flip side, and I don't know if this argument holds up compared to the argument I just made, but if you have to take it right down, zoomed in so far, frame by frame by frame, even half a frame by half a frame, is that worthy of a 6-game suspension? Like, if it's not blatantly obvious that he's trying to check him in the head. Because, like we've said, I don't think Rissling did that deliberately. I don't think anybody is implying that Rissling deliberately injured Mosey. So, and I get that a check to the head should be suspended. Like, that's fine. I'm not disputing that at all. The only thing I'm thinking is 6 games for something that is the matter of a frame difference. Like, if they didn't have the technology to go that far in, you could argue that they would have gone, yeah, it was a shoulder-to-shoulder collision. Like, I don't know how much the frame by frame changed the decision of the Department of Player Safety, but
well, I mean, you could see exactly then where the contact was. Yeah. It's important to remember that the 6 games also takes into account the repeat offender.
Yes, exactly. Which
is why it's longer than it would be if it was just a single incident.
Exactly. So I assumed that it was a 3-game suspension and the repeat offender doubled it. That's the way I see it, because then it would have made sense. Rissling made the hit. Ulmer had the retaliation. 3 games for each of them, problem solved. But the fact that Rissling had that repeat offender gave him... They went, okay, he's a repeat offender, we can double this. Put it to 6. You know? Which... I don't think... I think if it was a check to the head, which by the looks of it is, I'm not disputing the fact that it was a check to the head. He's... Like, a check to the head, you should be suspended. Yeah. That's not in dispute.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah.
However, 6 games, I think that's a bit too excessive.
I think the key is, I mean, like you say, he has not intended to hit him in the head.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's, he is lower than his full body thing, but also, I don't blame him in the slightest for making the hit. I mean, what else is... Mosey is so skilled that...
Yeah, like they always mention how Mosey is one of the fastest players in the league. Like, the only way you're going to be able to stop a guy like Evan Mosey is to use the body. And unfortunately, that comes with situations where a player goes for the hit and something happens in that moment that changes the direction of the hit, or they go for the hit and Mosey moves at the last moment. I'm not saying that happened here, but... Yeah, like you say, Mosey is an incredibly talented player. He's been known as one of the fastest, most talented players in England for the last few years. So the only way Rissling could have stopped him was to hit him. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Max. I don't think there was another play he could have made. He didn't do it intentionally. The 6 games are taking into account the repeat offender, and I mean, the fortunate thing is Mosey seems. I mean, I know concussion symptoms can take a while to come through, but it seems as though he's okay.
Yeah, which I mean is lucky, and I think both of us are very glad that he's okay. Because Mosey's a great player. Like, regardless of what team he plays for, he's a solid player. I would say I would have thought it would have been more 4. I would have said 4 games for that. Give the 3 games for the initial incident to line up with Ulmer, because I think that's fair. Because everything Ulmer did was in retaliation. So I think the initial hit and the initial contact in the game, they should both get the exact same. You know.
You can't come off the bench. That's
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, him coming off the bench and doing that was in retaliation. He can't do that, therefore he should be suspended. But he only did that because of what Rissling did. Therefore, they should both get 3 games for that. The repeat offender, I think, should have been 1 or 2 games. Nothing more. I don't think they should have doubled the suspension because of repeat offender. But then again, of course, the health of the players is the most important thing. And as he's a repeat offender, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. So I can understand why they put it up to such a big number. I don't personally agree with it, but it makes sense. You know, like, I understand. I don't agree, but I understand. But anyway, there's big chat about the Department of Player Safety in the live chat. Feel free to talk more about it. We'll move on to the next piece of information, which is very interesting, actually. This was brought to me by Chris, like, an hour before the podcast started. So this was published earlier today, and we're going back to Belfast. We've had a few things about Belfast. They brought a player in. There's a player that's decided to leave the team. So, the Belfast Giants forward, Hunter Bishop, has announced his retirement from professional hockey. So, I would argue this is completely out of the blue. I'm not really that keyed up with the Belfast Giants day-to-day stuff, to be fair. But this was very unexpected, I would argue. So Hunter Bishop will return to the USA immediately to join the junior head coach general manager position at the Charlestown Colonials that he will take up next season in his hometown of Charleston, South Carolina. The 2018-19 season was Bishop's first in Belfast. He had come from the EBEL's HC Innsbruck, where he had played since 2015-16. 31-year-old forward had 5 goals and 17 assists for 22 points in 38 games. He helped the organisation win the Continental Cup silver medal, of course, and the Giants have said that they would like to thank his service to the organisation and wish him, as well as his family, all the very best as they move back to the US. So there's a statement from here from Hunter Bishop. So after a few discussions with my family and Coach Keith, I've made a very tough decision to retire from hockey so that I can return home to focus on this position that he's accepted from South Carolina. It's harder than I ever imagined, knowing that I'm done playing the game that I have loved my entire life. However, I'm excited about transitioning to the other side as a coach to help other young men achieve their dreams in the game that has given me so much. I have nothing but great things to say about the Giants organisation and the city of Belfast. Everything is done very professionally. I'm very thankful for our time here in beautiful Northern Ireland. I'd like to thank my teammates for being understanding with my decision. The Giants off-ice team behind the scenes, who made me and my family welcomed the moment we arrived. And lastly, to the fans of Belfast, who make this place the best spot in the EIHL. Thanks for the great memories, Hunter Bishop. So, Chris, what do you think about Hunter Bishop calling it a day?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's got a great opportunity. Just looking at his stats, I mean, he wasn't bad for the Giants at all. 19 points in 34 games in the league, plus 5 in 10 in the Continental Cup and the Challenge Cup. And I think he's just got a great opportunity that he's been offered. I mean, he is how old is he? 31.
Yeah.
So arguably, he's still had quite a few years still to go. But I mean, obviously, he's American. He's American citizen, so the opportunity to go back, maybe obviously he's getting to the time now where he wants to be, settling down with family and all the rest of it, and doesn't want to be flying around and have a long time away from home. So,
which I think is incredibly understandable.
Oh yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's when you've got a player and you're moving teams and all the rest of it. I mean, he's moved from he played in Innsbruck. I mean, he's been playing in America and Canada all his life before he went to Slovakia in the EBEL.
Yep.
And then he had 3 years at Innsbruck, and then he goes to the Giants. When you've got a family and everything, and if you're moving kids around countries and all the rest of it, or having a long time away, it's draining on you. So I don't.
And you've also got to think about the impact it has on your kids and your family. So.
Well, yeah. So I don't blame him in the slightest. I mean, I don't know his family situation, but it's all best of luck to him, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't really know a huge amount about Hunter Bishop, to be fair, but yeah, like I completely respect this move. I think the good thing is the Belfast Giants are in a position that losing a guy like Hunter Bishop isn't going to hurt them too much. So I think, to be fair, this works for both parties. Like, the Belfast Giants, of course, have brought in Smotherman, so they've got an immediate replacement for Hunter Bishop. Whether he turns out to be the same point-producing kind of guy, of course, we'll find out. But from the Belfast Giants' perspective, they've lost a player that played quite well for them, but they've got a stacked roster anyway, so I don't think it's that big of a problem for them. It's not as if they're a one-line team and one of their key players from that line decided to leave. Because they're a multi-line team, like, they play really well. And also on the flip side for Bishop, like, as you said, it's good that he's felt comfortable enough to make this decision. I think it could be really tough for hockey players to decide that enough is enough. I would say more so than any other sport, hockey players just want to play. Like, and you hear every single time that they do interviews with recently retired players, pretty much all they say is, like, I miss it. Like, they miss playing so much. They know that they can't, or they understand that they've got other stuff to do, but they miss the fact, and it's more so they miss the fact that they're with a group of guys in that locker room, and they're basically going through hell together every weeknight or every weekend to try and bring the fans a great experience. Like, that's the stuff that I think players miss the most, and it's not as if he's going really far out of the hockey stratosphere. He's taking a job. He's basically taking a promotion. Like, he's taking the next step up. He's going to go work in his hometown, essentially, or his home state of South Carolina. He's going to be back home. He's going to have the chance to raise his kids back home. Hopefully see some of his family back home, and he's a head coach / general manager. Like, that's an awesome job. Like, that's a really good position to be in. So yeah, I wish nothing but the best for Hunter Bishop, and Chris obviously does as well. And yeah, I think that's really nice. It's one of those ones that's like, oh, it's a shame, but like, it's completely understandable, and I respect that decision. We get like 2 or 3, we get like half a dozen of these stories every season or so, don't we? And it's like, you can't fault them for making that choice. I mean, if I was in a similar position, I'd probably do the same thing. You've got to put yourself and your family first. There's a good quote that some of the like basketball shows, like some of the NBA shows, use quite a lot. It's like, don't think of what you can do for the sport. Think of what the sport can do for you. You know,
yeah, like, that's a paraphrase of JF Kennedy's inauguration speech.
Exactly, yeah, but then it's used in like more of a, I think it's like NFL or NBA terms. I can't remember which one it is, but yeah. So yeah, then shall we move on?
Yep, let's move on. I've got everything ready.
Awesome. So we have, sorry, I've just been sent something.
A bit of Elite League history. Not as in we're going to go back into the Elite League archives, although that could be a good series.
Right, Max, I've got your messages. I will look at them later. Sorry, I'm in the middle of a podcast. So
yeah, he's in the chat. He knows we're in the middle of the podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, how unprofessional of you, Max. So anyway, this is a very, very... So this is our... what do we call it? Play under review.
It's the play under review.
For those of you who don't know...
Video review.
The play under review is the... We basically take a topic from the Elite Ice Hockey League of Britain's Hockey League and have a bit more of a chat about it compared to some of the other topics. We kind of do it with everything, but this is more of a debate topic that we find. Something that might slip under the cracks, and I would argue this one definitely slipped under the cracks. So, this last week, this article was written on the Elite League website on January the 28th. There's a bit of history made, like Chris mentioned. A bit of history in the Elite Ice Hockey League. So, the article reads as follows. Belfast Giants forward Colin Shields wrote a little more Elite Ice Hockey League history last night, so that was January 22nd, in Milton Keynes, or January 27th, excuse me, in Milton Keynes, as Colin Shields became the league's all-time leading point scorer. The Great Britain International's assist on the Giants' final goal in their 9-2 win over the Lightning moved him on to 732 points overall, taking over from former Panther forward David Clark, who was sitting on 731 points, who hit that last year, didn't he?
He hit that, yeah. I mean, he was the leading scorer for a while and kept adding to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Until he retired.
So, Colin Shields in 661 Elite Ice Hockey League games, he has 291 goals and 441 assists for 732 points. So he is officially the Elite Ice Hockey League's GOAT, which is great. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this and why it wasn't just a normal topic is I'd actually like to ask the chat this as well as Chris. Without me mentioning that happened, did you guys know that the Elite Ice Hockey League had a new all-time leading point scorer? Now, the reason I ask that is because I don't think the Elite Ice Hockey League made enough of a deal about this. Like, just to put it into perspective, this is like the equivalent. Like, this is the Great Britain equivalent, or the Elite Ice Hockey League equivalent of somebody surpassing Wayne Gretzky in the NHL. Now, could you imagine if somebody surpassed the amount of points that Wayne Gretzky has scored in the National Hockey League, how much of a shitstorm and how crazy the hockey world would go? I mean, first of all, because he's so high up there compared to the rest of the players. Of course, like, chances are, I'm not going to say for certain, but chances are it's not going to be attained, ever. But this is the Elite League equivalent. Like, we have a new person that's come into the league who's been here for a while, and is now, statistically, the greatest skater to have ever played in the Elite Ice Hockey League. The Belfast Giants probably made a big deal about it. Don't blame them.
Yeah, they did.
The Elite Ice Hockey League, yeah, they mentioned it once or twice. But I don't get it. I don't understand why there wasn't such a big deal about this. And I was talking to Chris about this when it actually happened. And I remember he mentioned, like, well, what else are they going to do? Like, what else are they going to do? Are they gonna because pretty much they'd already sent out a tweet, you know? And of course, some people might be like, well, yeah, but we already know it happened. Like, he hit the points. Congratulations to him. He had, like, a couple of posts on Twitter. Problem solved. But I don't feel that's enough. Like, there should have been some sort of ceremony that took place before a Belfast Giants game. I'll preface this by saying I don't know if anything happened. I would imagine that the Belfast Giants did something for Colin Shields, thanks to this. But I'm thinking from an Elite League perspective, there needed to be something happen there. Like, could there be a situation where some of Colin Shields' former teammates come together? Of course, it's short notice, but it's not as if he scored 400 points this season. Like, people knew this was coming. People knew that this was a potential thing to happen. Sure, they might do it in retrospect, which is fine, but I just don't think... I feel bad for Colin Shields. Like, chances are he probably doesn't care about it, but, like, this is huge. Like, he's the best player that isn't a goaltender to have ever played in the Elite Ice Hockey League. His name has gone down in the history books as the best player, and looking at the current players in the league, or the active players and where their stats are at, there isn't really anybody that's that close. So he's going to be holding this for quite a while if not forever, you know? Like, we always assume that, oh, another player will come in and in 10, 15 years' time, he'll beat that. That might not be the case. Colin Shields might hold this record for the rest of the Elite Ice Hockey League's history. Like, that's an important thing to talk about, you know? So go on, Chris.
Okay, so my point on it, I mean, I found that article as well. For anyone who's obviously not at a computer screen, it is 5 lines long.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, I copy and pasted it into a Word document. 62 words.
Yep.
Bearing in mind that, well, one of those is a score and 2 others are numbers. And I just don't, I mean, it's like you said, I mean, what more can they do? I mean, I would do like a YouTube montage.
Yeah,
like
highlights, definitely.
His first point, his last point, significant ones. I mean, he's won trophies as well. You know, some of his significant goals. I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head if any of his goals like won the Challenge Cup or won a playoff or something, you know. But goals such as that. And I think it's difficult because the league, as we know, is relatively small. And when I say relatively small, I mean in terms of Elite League, not team, but the league, media officials.
Yeah.
And because there is so... I don't know how... I think it's definitely not more than a few people, is it? Even if it's that many.
I think they got the new media manager this year. But other than that, I don't know of many. There's probably a few behind the scenes, I would imagine, but I would
so
imagine
much else
it's a team
to
of
do.
more than like half a dozen.
Yeah, there's so much else to do that you almost can't afford to take somebody out of that rotation of doing the game reports and updating the website stats and all the rest of it to make this. So you're in an almost catch-22 situation because until the media team grows and does more stuff like this, you aren't going to get more fans in, but without more fans in, there's not enough money to employ more people to do it.
Yep.
So it's a big, you know, catch-22 situation.
But then again, just to sort of counter that, just to play devil's advocate, okay, so take your example of the highlight package, right? The Elite League, I would assume, this might not be right, but they have a copy of all of the televised games or all of the webcasted games that they've had, right? I don't think that's unfair to assume, right? That they have a copy of them somewhere.
The games all have to be recorded and sent to the league.
Exactly.
So the league can review any disciplinary things. I'm assuming here, that should there not be any disciplinary, that they don't bother keeping the game tape in a big storage locker.
I would imagine they'd be able to get from the respective teams, to be fair, because I would assume they'd keep a copy of it somewhere for their own records. But just to play devil's advocate, I'm not that media savvy, right? I know the basics of editing. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at that at all. I mean, you've seen my videos, let's be honest. I could make a highlight package for that in like, if I had all the relevant footage in like half a day, to make it really nice in half a day. Are you seriously telling me that one of the media representatives from the Elite League can't spend half a day when most of the time the games only happen during the weekend? Like, they've got the rest of the week. Sure, they might not be hired to do that job during the rest of the week, but like, to an extent, I agree with you. Like, they're in a catch-22, but at the same time, like, I don't really buy that whole like, oh well, the league doesn't really get that much money, and their team isn't, the media team isn't that big. Like, come on, just to make a highlight package, like there's hundreds and hundreds of people on YouTube doing it, like, and the league can't do it. Or get what's that? There's a YouTube channel that does EIHL highlights, isn't there?
Yeah, there was, wasn't there?
Ask him to do it on commission, sorted. You know. Like, if they really needed to outsource that in order to get it done, you'd think that they'd have the idea and then go, okay, how do we get this done? I'd rather them go, we want to do this, but unfortunately we can't do it because, as opposed to, we're not going to do this because. You know? And also, okay, here's my other thing that brings in a slightly different tangent with this. So Colin Shields, now highest point scorer in Elite Ice Hockey League history. I want to ask you the question, Chris. Do you think, and I'm not so sure about my answer to this, but do you think when Colin Shields either leaves the Elite League or retires as a hockey player, that he will have his jersey number retired league-wide? Do you think that is something that the Elite League would consider?
No, because they haven't done it for Clark when he retired when he was the leader.
But say, how old is Colin Shields?
Colin Shields is 39.
He's 39. Okay, I thought he was younger. So, okay, yeah, okay. I was going to say, like, for example, if he was like 35 and played another 5 years in the league, and he got like a big gap between first and second, then maybe. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the fact that he's 39, of course, I don't know how much longer he's going to be playing in the league. He might pull a Jaromir Jagr on all of us and end up playing another decade, or he might call it a day after the season. I don't know. Do you think the Belfast Giants will retire his number?
It's more likely that the Giants will.
Oh yeah. Well, it's definitely more likely than the league, but
well, yes, yeah. I would suspect it is likely that the Giants will. Yes,
because I must admit I'm not really that keyed up on Colin Shields' career as a whole. Do you have his elite prospects up there?
Of course I do.
Is this an example of a guy that's played his whole career with one franchise, or is he moved about a little bit?
Almost. So his Elite League debut was 2005-2006 with Belfast. 37 points in 27 games.
Wow, nice one.
Then he went over to America in the ECHL.
Okay.
Back to the Elite League with the Newcastle Vipers.
Oh, okay.
And then in 2008-09, he was back at the Giants, stayed at the Giants pretty much for the rest of the career. He had half a season with the Steelers in 2012-13.
Okay.
But since the second half of the 2012-13 season, he has been at the Giants. He's been assisting. He was alternate captain from 14 through to 18.
He's still an alternate now, I believe.
Not according to Elite Prospects, but yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
So he has, a lot of his time at the Giants. I mean, his statistics are just, ridiculous in in some respects. I mean,
yeah.
he got in 2000 and I've lost it now. In 2009-10 season, he scored 97 points in 56 games.
Wow. Almost 2 points every game.
Yeah, and then 5 points in 4 playoff games. So 102 points in 60 games. He's been more than a point per game for a lot of his of his career.
He's over a point per game for the entirety of his career.
Yeah, but I'm looking at individual seasons.
Yeah, like by season. Yeah, it's not as if he had like a stretch of 3 seasons where he played super well and then played okay for the rest of the. Yeah, I get you. But yeah, so that's our little debate. It wasn't the best debate topic we've had out there, but I thought it was something to bring up, like, because some people did mention in the chat that they had no idea. Like, some people are Elite League fans that are watching this and had no idea that Colin Shields has become the all-time leading point scorer. I don't think that's fair on Colin Shields. Like, the guy's 39 years old. I think it's fair to assume that he's not going to be playing for a huge amount of time after this. I think he deserves to be recognised for something like that. Like, Colin Shields and David Clark, they're the two that are very much up there. Like, we've got a couple of active players that are doing all right for themselves, like Robert Dowd and I think Ben O'Connor's up there. I think there's somebody else that was up there. He's just played 900 games recently. Matthew Myers. But of course he's already played 900 games and he's further down compared to some of the other guys. But yeah, I thought that was something that was worth mentioning. So yeah, congrats to Colin Shields for making history again. Now, before we move over to the NHL, just one thing I thought I would mention. There was an article released on the Elite League website at 9 o'clock this morning. The tickets for the playoff finals weekend are now on sale. So you can purchase them directly from the Motorpoint Arena or by calling their number. I'm not going to read it out because they're not sponsoring me. Just to remind you that you can get individual day tickets or full weekend tickets. And you can get adult tickets, concession tickets, or family tickets, which are 2 adults and 2 concessions. And a full weekend is £84 per adult. One day is £45 per adult. The early bird tickets are now available up until Sunday the 3rd of March. So they will be changing prices the closer you get to the event and as tickets are less available. So if you want to go to the playoff weekend, of course we had Max here the last podcast. He was telling us how great playoff finals weekend is. It's something that I definitely want to do at some point. Whether I'll get there this year, I'm not too sure. But it's definitely something that I'd really like to go to at some point. So yeah, go check that out if you want to go get your tickets for the playoff finals weekend. So we've done the Elite League. Took us about an hour. So that's about right. Let's move over across the pond to everybody's favourite hockey league, the National Hockey League. So, looking at the standings, it's still quite similar. There isn't really any huge differences, although the only huge difference I would argue is the Colorado Avalanche have been doing really badly recently. I saw something that they've, since New Year or since the All-Star break, they've completely combusted, which is very interesting. The Tampa Bay Lightning are still in first place in the league with 80 points in 52 games. They beat my New York Rangers a couple of nights ago. Thanks for that, Tampa Bay. Appreciate that. It was a close game, but, I mean, to lose 3-2 to the league-leading team when we're in a rebuild, I'll take it, you know? Could have been a lot worse. Calgary, Winnipeg, San Jose, and the Islanders round off the top 5 in the league. Then we've got Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Pittsburgh, Nashville, Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Pittsburgh, for 6-10. Then Washington, Vegas, Columbus, Dallas, and Buffalo for 11-15 in the league. Then Minnesota, Carolina, Vancouver, Colorado, and Philadelphia. Philadelphia's managed to come back. 7-game winning streak for the Flyers. That's recently been Carter Hart. They've kind of had to rush their best goaltender prospect with the abysmal season they've been having so far this year. And they're on a 7-game winning streak. They've played very well since the new year, so that's worked out quite nicely for them. Then St. Louis, Arizona, the New York Rangers, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Anaheim Ducks for 21st to 25th in the league. The Anaheim Ducks have had a really rough time. Do you see they had 6 goals scored against them by Winnipeg their last game in the first period? Yeah. 6 goals allowed in the first period. And then Florida, Detroit, Chicago, New Jersey, and LA make 26 to 30 in the league. And last, but certainly not least, certainly least, the Ottawa Senators in 31st with 43 points in 52 games. And you know the thing that stings about that the most for Ottawa Senators fans? With all the shit they've had to deal with so far this year, if they win the draft lottery, the pick will go to the Colorado Avalanche because it was part of the Matt Duchene trade. They acquired Matt Duchene to be we're going to be a contending team. They've sucked the last season and a half. If they could win the draft lottery and get the chance to get Jack Hughes, and Colorado will take the first overall pick. Ottawa, you just have no luck at the moment. So yeah, those are the standings from the NHL so far. Of course, we're getting closer and closer to the trade deadline. We're less than a month away to the NHL trade deadline, which I'm very excited to see what happens. I always love the trade deadline. The trade deadline, free agency, I always love seeing all that stuff happen. I think it's just the be a GM guy in me is just I love seeing where all these players get traded to. And all
right,
the
guys, in the chat now, we want an Odd Man Rush deadline day live stream.
Oh, I'm already planning on it. Don't you worry.
Oh, are you? Okay.
I'll get a cheeky little poll out nearer the time. So we've got some news to talk about in terms mostly trades, but I'll go over one thing first because I saw it was uploaded very, very recently, less than half an hour before we started the stream, I believe. Or near about the time. The backup goaltender of the Washington Capitals, Phoenix Copley, has signed a 3-year, $3.3 million contract with the Washington Capitals. He would have become an unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. He's 27 years old, He was acquired as part of the trade that sent Kevin Shattenkirk to Washington on February 27th, 2017 at the deadline. That worked out so well for the Capitals. But then he came to the Rangers, and he's been all right, I guess. The 27-year-old goalie, he is 10-5-3 so far this season, with a 2.98 goals against average and a .903 save percentage, and 1 shutout. He had points in 7 straight starts from November 24th to January 9th, the longest run for any Capitals goalie this season. He was born in Alaska and was signed by the Capitals as a free agent in March 2014. And then he was traded to the St. Louis Blues for forward Troy Brouwer, and then he got traded back to them in 2017. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Anything you want to add on that, Phoenix Copley? Of course, they've got Braden Holtby in the net as their main guy. Now they've secured their backup position. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they clearly think that, you know, he's going to be a good asset to them. They're keen to, obviously, they've got a cup-winning team now, so they're keen to keep on to the core of it as much as they can. And a part of that was, you know, when Holtby was rested, knowing that they've got a good number 2.
Absolutely.
So they're keen to keep hold of that, because a good number 2 is just as important. I mean, it's almost harder to be...
A good number 2 is just as important.
But it's almost harder to be the backup keeper than it is to be the starter, because you've got to be mentally prepared night in, night out, but 99% of the time not play.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's much more difficult almost than being the starting netminder, and they've got a good one there, so they want to keep him.
Exactly, and I think this is quite clear that the Washington Capitals Stanley Cup window is very much the here and now. They need to get on that. It will close within the next 3 or 4 years or so. So they want to try and do their very best to pick up as much silverware as possible, I guess, in their window before they have to follow what the Pittsburgh Penguins and the LA Kings and the Chicago Blackhawks have done and either reload or rebuild. So, yeah. Now, let's move on to some trades. Some very, very big trades happening. One very big trade happening on February 2nd, a couple of days ago. So, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Florida Panthers decided to make a pretty big move. I think it's fair to say this is the biggest move before the deadline so far. So, the Pittsburgh Penguins decided to trade centers Derek Brassard and Riley Sheahan, as well as a 2nd and 4th round pick in the 2019 NHL draft, as well as another 4th round 2019 pick that was previously acquired from the Minnesota Wild, to the Florida Panthers in exchange for Nick Bjugstad and Jared McCann. So Bjugstad and McCann debuted with the Penguins in a 5-3 win against the Ottawa Senators. Bjugstad had an assist and McCann had 1 shot on goal. Brassard has 15 points in 40 games this season. He's 31 years old. He's in the final season of a 5-year contract he signed with the New York Rangers back in 2014. He was traded to the Penguins by the Senators in 2018. He had 8 points in 14 games for Pittsburgh after the trade and 4 points in 12 Stanley Cup playoff games. He is, of course, a Stanley Cup champion, I believe, with the... yes, he is. He is a Stanley Cup champion with... No. Yes, he is. No? 2018. So... No, the 2018 playoffs was Washington, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's not. Sorry, Brassard. That's interesting. Oh, yeah, of course he's not. Anyway, I really like Derek Brassard. I really liked him with the New York Rangers. I thought he was a great player. And, yeah, so who else we got? Riley Sheahan, of course, he came over to Pittsburgh from Detroit in order to try and shore up some of their center depth. And he's now moved on as well. He's 27 years old. He was traded to Pittsburgh in 2017 also, but very early on in the season. He can also become an unrestricted free agent. So, Chris, what do you think about all of this stuff? So, by the looks of it, this is the Pittsburgh Penguins going, we need to improve our quality down the middle, because they've traded 2 centers away for 2 centers, or 2 forwards away for 2 forwards. And this is a sign that they're shedding a bit of salary cap space. To me, it kind of looks like they're very much still in win now. Of course, they won 2 straight cups a couple of years ago. They've still got the core of players that they had back then that are more than capable of having a deep playoff run. They're shedding a bit of salary cap space when the eventual tear it down, rebuild has to take place. Getting rid of some expiring contracts for guys that have maybe another year. I know Bukestad has another year on his contract, so a bit more stability there to know where they're going to go at the end of this season. Is there anything that jumps out to you with this? Is there anything that you want to talk about?
I think you've covered most of it. I always find it interesting when in trades a side gives away picks.
Yeah.
Because very much like you said, when they're giving away a pick, they're very much kind of going for it now and going with this the established players rather than trying to build up the youngsters through the draft with the prospects and all the rest of the deals that go with that. To give away a second and a fourth, I mean...
A second and 2 fourths, I might add.
Is it a second and 2 fourths?
Yes, because the second and fourth that were owned by Pittsburgh for this draft, and also
and the one
fourth from Minnesota. Yeah.
So they're not interested in... It almost strikes me as that they're not interested too much in the draft coming up. Whether their scouting network has gone, it's a bit of a weak draft and we're not got brilliant picks in it, so, let's focus on the now or what have you. I mean, but then again, the Panthers could get some really good picks from those. But
yeah, I think very much it's. I think the Penguins definitely had to give up those 3 different draft picks in order to acquire a guy like Bukestad. Like, Bukestad is the centerpiece of this entire deal, and I don't think Derek Brassard and Riley Sheahan would have been enough on their own, hence why they added all those picks in the draft. And I think that's really good for the Florida Panthers, purely for the fact that, they've lost a guy like Bukestad, which was a solid play. He's quite a good defensive forward as well, from what I can remember, for the Florida Panthers. However, the Florida Panthers, once again, they've started the year looking like they could be a contending team and could be one of those teams that actually could make a deep playoff run, and they started the year limping. Like, they pretty much every single season seem to get off to a really bad start, and that affects them for the rest of the year, and they either limp into the playoffs as a 7th or 8th seed and go out in the first round, or they don't make the playoffs, which is more often than not. So I think that the Panthers have gone, okay, so we're getting 2 expiring contracts, that if they play well for us, there might be the chance that we could keep them on for several more years if they're the right fit for this team, or we've got the right salary cap space, etc., etc. But also, they're going, well, we haven't had as good of a season as we could have done this year. We're going to end up probably being at that kind of limbo where they're not quite good enough to make the playoffs, but not bad enough to be in the chance with a lottery pick. So they're wanting to get a lot of draft assets together and go, okay, we can either move these at the deadline or at the draft for other players, or we can use them to select younger players and bring them into our system. So I think it will be very interesting. I think we won't know who, quote unquote, because everybody wants to know who won the trade, Yeah. And I think this trade serves both teams' purpose quite well. I think we won't know till the end of this season as for the initial, who won the trade. It could be that it could be that Bukestad ends up playing with Malkin or something like that, and or Phil Kessel or somebody like that, and ends up tearing up the end of the season and helps them have a deep playoff run, maybe even a Stanley Cup, that is a possibility. Or it might turn out that he doesn't live up to what he was supposed to do, and they've got him on contract for another year and it just doesn't work out. Those things happen. I think we won't know ultimately the real winner until we know who the Panthers either draft or trade those picks for.
Yeah, I'm always a little bit skeptical about who won the trade, because teams don't make a trade thinking it's going to be bad for them. They've both made a trade for a purpose.
Unless you're like the Ottawa Senators and give away your first round pick for this year that ends up probably being the first overall pick for Matt Duchene, who's probably going to leave at the end of the season anyway.
Yeah, but at the time, somebody must have thought that it would have been a good idea.
They acquired Matt Duchene to think that they could help them be a contending team.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I thought that was a very interesting trade. I wasn't expecting it. I must say I am a big fan of Derek Brassard. I remember when he was traded over to the New York Rangers, and I really liked him. He had some really good chemistry with Matt Zuccarello. who is probably going to be traded before the deadline. So yeah, I think this trade works for both sides. Of course, the Panthers, I don't believe they're out of a playoff contention yet. Not like in terms of statistically, but like I don't think they're that far out of a wild card spot. So this might be what they need. Just this little bit of shake up in their locker room might be exactly what they need to tip them over the edge. I think we'll find out. I think it'll be very interesting. And of course, one of the picks being from the Minnesota Wild, we'll obviously have to see where they come at the end of the season, see where that pick is in the draft.
The Panthers are 9 points off the wild card at the moment.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so there's a bit of distance. That's pretty much the same as the Rangers, isn't it?
The Rangers are... yeah, the Rangers are only 1 point ahead of the Panthers, but the Panthers have a game in hand.
So chances are they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Like, there is the possibility, but like in terms of percentages and like chances, there's a very slim chance that they make it. So pick up 2 expiring contracts, get those draft assets. I mean, Jared McCann and Riley Sheahan aren't exactly 2 guys really to write home about. I'm not quite sure why they acquired... I would have been more impressed from the Panthers' perspective if they acquired a first-round pick. I'm not saying that that's what they were deserving of or what they were giving away is equal value. But like I said, they're picking up 2 guys on expiring contracts that haven't really had the best of seasons so far this year. Like, they've kind of, for want of a better word, like, underperformed on their previous expectations. And they're giving away a guy like Nick Bjugstad, who's actually played pretty well for them, you know? Like, Bjugstad he's had a pretty good career so far in Florida. And Jared McCann looks like one of those guys that he's a guy that can play pretty well for your team as well. I'm just trying to find more stats on them. Bjugstad, he was the second-line centre. Yeah, he was taking place of Malkin, so that's injury cover as well. McCann's 22 years old, so he still has space to grow. And Bjugstad is 26, so he's hitting like the prime years of his career. So, like, if they'd got a first rounder and a 4th round, I would have been more impressed from Florida's perspective. But I think it looks like, dependent on where Pittsburgh come, I think they will have done better in this trade, to be fair. But anyway, so another trade that happened earlier than this trade. This was on January 29th. I think it's good to mention. We may as well. So, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've had jokes about their defense mentioned all throughout the season and the season before.
Mainly by you.
Especially by me. I love my good old recycled, overused hockey jokes. That's basically what my channel's built on. You're welcome. So, the LA Kings, of course, having a really shit season, for want of a better word.
Basically.
Yep. They have decided to trade defenseman Jake Muzzin to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for 2 Maple Leafs prospects, some of which people are saying are almost NHL ready, as well as a first-round pick in the 2019 NHL draft. So,
yeah, again, this is the same, obviously, being a Leafs fan here. This is the same, as I was saying earlier. The Leafs are going for it this year.
Absolutely.
They've got to.
They should.
You know, it's the best they've been in many years. So they're going for it. They're almost saying, look, this is the here and now. This is our chance to try and do it. We're not building up with prospects. We're going for it.
Yeah. Now, this is definitely, compared to the trade we just talked about, this trade makes a lot more sense from both sides. Like,
it does.
The only gripe I have with it is that Jake Muzzin is a left-handed shot, and the Maple Leafs are devoid of right-handed shot defensemen. Like, if they'd managed to get a right-handed shot with the same sort of work ethic and ability for the same amount as they got Jake Muzzin, like, I'd be like, this is a fantastic trade, like, brilliant. Like, they didn't have to give up any roster players. Like, they didn't have to give up any of their talented forwards. Sure, they're getting rid of some of the future in terms of forward Carl Gunstrom, the rights to defenseman Sean Dursey, and a first-round pick in this draft, which, if the Maple Leafs make the playoffs and have a deep playoff run, is going to be a late pick anyway. So that's not going to hurt them too much.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the Maple Leafs have prospects. Like, they're now in the situation where they've got quite a lot of prospects playing in the Marlies, on the Toronto Marlies of the AHL, and most of the prospects that they've been training.
I mean, the Marlies won it all, didn't they, last year?
Exactly, they did, yeah. But quite a lot of the prospects that they've been kind of stewing in the pot for the last few years, they're now on the roster. So it's like, now's the time to start pushing. We can sacrifice a bit of our future in terms of trying to improve the here and now. And Jake Muzzin, I've heard nothing but good things about Jake Muzzin from Kings fans.
I like this trade.
A lot of people have said, bar Drew Doughty, he's the best defenseman was the best defenseman on the Kings roster. He's a 29-year-old defenseman. He signed a 5-year contract extension back in 2014 after they beat the New York Rangers. Thanks for that. And so he will become an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. He has 21 points in 50 games this season. He has 213 points in just under 500 games in his career, and 20 points in 50 Stanley Cup playoff games, including winning the Cup in 2014. We're going to skip past that. Fucking Alec Martinez. So he was a 5th round pick of the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 2007 draft, and he signed with LA as a free agent in 2010. So that's pretty cool. The players going the other way, just in case you were curious. Carl Gunstrom was a 2nd round pick in 2016. He's a 21-year-old. He has 29 points in 42 games in the AHL. He'll be assigned to Ontario now of the AHL. So, to be fair, they don't actually have to travel that far to go to their new AHL team. It's not as if they're moving over across the world. They're going from Toronto to Ontario. So, like, they could be going to LA, for example. Like, oh, that's a crazy difference. And Sean Dursey was a 2nd round pick also, but in the 2018 draft. But the Maple Leafs had never signed him. He's 20 years old. He has 28 points in 24 games in the OHL as a what's the term they use? An overage player, something like that. It was not an easy trade for the Kings. It was not easy for the Kings to trade Muzzin. He's a terrific player, terrific person, took a huge step in leadership over the last few years. A very difficult day for us, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I think this is a trade that works really well for both sides. I'm hoping that those two players, Gunstrom and Dursey, and their 1st round pick work out for the LA Kings. Like, I think the Kings, they've had a really big fall from grace, more so than most contending teams or most previous Stanley Cup champions, I would argue, which is a shame. But, I mean, they won 2 cups in 4 years. Like, they can't complain. So, then the last trade I want to talk about is a bit of a homecoming that took place. So, the Pittsburgh Penguins made another trade. This one was on January 28th, so they've been very busy at the trade deadline, or pre-trade deadline. Jamie Alexiak, the defenseman, who was acquired from the Dallas Stars, has been traded back to the Dallas Stars by the team that traded for him the first time round, in exchange for a 2019 4th round pick, which, funnily enough, was the exact amount that the Pittsburgh Penguins sent, or the Dallas Stars sent, in order to, it's basically like Groundhog Day.
It's also, we should point out, it's not like this was at the start of his career. This was last year.
Oh, yeah, he got traded last year. Yeah. He's 26 years old. He was picked with the number 14th pick in the 2011 draft by Dallas. He was traded to Pittsburgh for a conditional 4th round pick in the 2019 draft on December 19th, 2017. That draft pick was returned to the Penguins on Monday. So they literally traded him for the exact same thing.
Oh, is it the same draft pick as well?
That's brilliant. Like, the exact same draft pick that they traded in order to get him. Like, it's not as if they traded a 2019 4th round pick. It's the exact same pick that they've traded back.
That's like just saying, right, we're going to try this.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, we're just going to go back to how it was. Oh, how I wish we could do that at Westminster at the minute.
It's basically like using your 30-day free trial on Netflix and then going, yeah, I'm not really that interested in it anymore. I've watched everything. I've watched that Ted Bundy documentary. I'm good. And then it just proceeds to go, yeah, you can have it back. Cheers. I love it. The exact same pick that they got to acquire him, they sent it back. I love it. So, the primary reason you could argue for this move, well, one, because the Dallas Stars know of him and know of his skill set. He's a big defenseman. He has been brought back because Stars defenseman Mark Methot underwent season-ending surgery on his knee on Monday. 33-year-old played 9 games this season and didn't record a point. So they need somebody essentially to come and slot in that top 4, top 6. And yeah, they figured that Alexiak was the right guy to get him. to be fair play on the Dallas Stars for getting him back for exactly the same amount as they left, because if he was picked up in 2017, so it was about 2 years later. He's a Stanley Cup champion. Like, he could have, to be fair, like, he won the 2017 Cup, I believe, with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, like, he could have maybe gone for a 3rd round pick, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's a Stanley Cup champion, like, there's stuff that comes with that. So yeah, that was the last trade that took place. Do you want to mention anything about that?
No, not particularly, really, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's move on to the last piece of NHL news that we want to talk about in the podcast. And that's the Stadium Series. Yes, the Stadium Series between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers, which will be taking place later on this month, I believe. Yes, Saturday, February 23rd. Will be broadcast at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for those watching. And the jerseys have just been announced, or just been unveiled, I think is the right word for it. The new Adidas or Adidas, however you want to call it. I call it Adidas. It's probably Adidas. I don't know. I
call it Adidas.
Yeah, I think Adidas is right, but we're probably wrong. I'm always wrong. Have you seen the comments on my channel? The Stadium Series jerseys have been announced, and I don't know what I think to them. I can't quite make my mind up.
I prefer Pittsburgh's, to be honest.
I agree. Yep, I agree. Now, don't get me wrong, because Pittsburgh played in a Stadium Series game recently. Isn't this just the exact same jersey, but with the colours flipped? Because the other one is the gold with the black penguin, right? But this one's black.
Can't recall
with
off
the
the top
gold
of my
penguin.
head, but it may well be.
I'm pretty sure it is. Like, I'm pretty sure this is... They probably just sat there in a boardroom one day and go, right, Stadium Series jerseys, what are we doing? How about we flip the colours the other way round? Brilliant,
Okay,
let's do it.
So, they have new crests and embellishments on it. This year's jerseys add oversized stripes that have been magnified to scale for the field. And it also features, the Pittsburgh jersey features an enlarged version of their signature rounded stripes from 1982 to 2007, while Philadelphia's jersey highlights a scaled-up version of the chevron stripes from their 1992 to 2007 looks.
I see. The Philadelphia Flyers jersey just doesn't look right to me.
No, I know what you mean. It just, yeah.
And I think I might know why. The only thing I can think of is, doesn't the inside of the, you know, like the circle bit in the Flyers jersey, doesn't that usually have white in it?
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
And I think that's the thing that's kind of freaking me out a little bit.
It's almost like they've gone on to, like PowerPoint and clicked set transparent colour. Yeah,
exactly. That was literally what I was about to say. It's literally like both of these teams have gone, let's make them transparent, stick them on. You know?
Well, it's Adidas that have designed these, isn't it? So.
Well, I think it's I think it's more the teams have done it and then like gone to Adidas and gone, this is what we want, and then they've probably like had a bit of back and forth.
Yeah. So normally on the Flyers logo, the circle in the middle is orange.
Right.
And then the ring around the circle is white.
That's what's tripping me out. Yeah.
So it's the
right.
logo, isn't it? I hadn't seen it, and now you've mentioned it, I can't unsee it.
Yeah, I could have come up with that in 5 minutes. They've literally just gone, here's the jersey. And it's like, okay, well, the problem is it looks far too basic, but the basic stuff that they've done with it just doesn't look right. Like,
yeah, I don't mind
Pittsburgh's,
but I don't particularly like Phillies, I must be honest.
Pittsburgh's is okay. I think it's a lot better than their previous Stadium Series one. Although I didn't mind their gold Stadium Series one. I thought it was okay. A lot of people didn't like them. They thought that it was a bit too bright, which I can understand. Because I'm pretty sure that one was gold, but everything else was black. But this one's basically just flipped over.
Maybe the better way of me saying it is that I don't dislike the jersey.
Yeah.
I can't particularly say that I like it.
Yeah, I'm kind of undecided, I think is the best way for me to say it.
Yeah.
So yeah, go
okay.
and check those jerseys out. I'm reading the article from the NHL website, so if you want to take a look at them. If you want a Stadium Series live chat, let me know. I'll probably do a poll about it. I mean, I'm doing 3 live streams this week, so As long as they do well, I won't complain. It means I don't have to write a video for a little while, so saves me a couple of things. Anyway, so let's move on to the final few things, shall we? So we're towards the end of the podcast. If there are any of you actually still watching, which would be great, feel free to get your questions ready. We'll have last call coming up in a minute where you can ask us questions about stuff that we've already talked about that you want us to go into in more detail. Or if there's any topics that we haven't talked about that you'd like us to discuss, do let us know. But Brits abroad. So this section is about it's kind of self-explanatory. British players, coaches, people that are quite well known in the British hockey system, British hockey scene, that are abroad in other leagues doing their thing. And we like to keep tabs just to keep you guys updated, as well as keep us updated, because I always like to hear about how the Brits are doing. So Chris, Kirk's Corner.
Yes, so Liam Kirk had quite a bit of a break. He had a 2-week break when he went over to the under 20s championship for Great Britain. Since he's come back, he's actually done not too badly at all. Since back, it's been 5 points in 6 games.
Nice.
He is on a 3-game point streak. And in total, he has 30 points from 45 games.
Which, to some people might be like, but it's the EIHL, like, surely he should have more points than that. To be fair, there was a huge stretch of time where he didn't score a point in, like, 17 games or something like that. Like, he had a really bad stretch, and he's come back and gone, I would argue, over a point per game since then. So, yeah, it's really good to hear Kirky doing well. Hopefully he's getting the attention of the Arizona Coyotes. Hopefully they sign him to his entry-level contract at some point. Maybe give him a few games towards the end of the season, because they're probably not going to make the playoffs again, let's be honest. Anyway, moving on. What about Tomo?
Schweinsteiger are sadly back at the bottom of the DEL.
Oh no!
Yes, back at the bottom of the league. He's on a 2-game losing streak. After he also lost 4-0 last night. He was on a 3-game winning streak before that. But he's he's still around 500. But yeah, Schweinsteiger's still bottom of the league.
By how many points?
Just the 2.
Okay, not too bad then. Still in contention, that's good. So yeah, that is Brits Abroad. You can see why we leave it till the end, pretty much, because it doesn't take
quite
too long.
short.
So, Fantasy League. This, of course, this is actually the best time to do Fantasy League, to be honest, because we didn't have a podcast last week. It wouldn't have been done by last week. So yeah,
that's true, actually.
Nicely. So, let me just bring up the wonders
of
the
Fantasy League. For people who have forgotten, it was 2 weeks, this last one, because of the All-Star break. Yeah. They had 2 weeks.
Yeah. Where's Kirk's team in the league? I can't remember, actually. Can you get that up
I'll have a look.
So we can talk about it after the thing. So, boom, Fantasy. Here we are. HSBC, give me some ad revenue, please. So, I lost this week. To be fair, I will admit it. I didn't actually do anything to my lineups these last 2 weeks. I completely forgot, and it's hurt me very clearly. So the Beanheads beat me. The Croatian Jets beat Clarkie's Infants. Max finally won a game, which is nice. The Nottingham Lions beat the Nottingham Yeet. Chris wins again. Yay.
Yep. 15-1-0.
Yep. Shut up. The Shaw Billionaires beat the Duncan PlayStations. The Denver Sports Team beat Pyongyang, which is great. Portsmouth Pirates and Stanley Elks with a very close game. And the Toronto Thunderbirds and Hab Suck with a very close game. But close in terms of the points were close, not that it was a high-scoring match. So, the games, or the matchups this week. Who is everyone playing? Let's take a look. Ba-da-da-da-da! I was hoping by the time I did that jingle it would have changed. So, come on, hurry up.
I know it's top of the East versus top of the West as I take on the Denver Sports Team.
Oh, nice, okay. I would
That's the only one I
show
know.
you, but it's taken about 4 years.
I could read them because I'm updating my lineup now.
Yeah, if you want to. Oh no, wait, I got it. It's fine.
Okay.
So, I am playing Hab Suck, who are 4-12-0. If I lose that, Jesus. Nottingham against Pyongyang. The Nottingham Outlaws, I should say. Max against the Pyongyang Sucklords. The Nottingham Yeet against Stanley Yelnats. The Duncan PlayStations against the Toronto Thunderbirds. Clarkie's Infants are on a bye week. The Croatian Jets against the Nottingham Redhawks. Chris is going to win another game. The Pirates against the Shaw Billionaires. I mean, let's be honest. It just wants you to win. And then the Beanheads against Trump's fake wife for the final matchup. So that's the fantasy stuff for this week. Let me just go.
While I remember, Peterborough, they are actually in a playoff spot at the moment.
I thought they might be. They've played relatively well. Are they a 500 team?
They are pretty much. I mean, they've played 50 and they've got 50 points.
Okay, so yeah, they're about a 500 team then. Yeah, that's what
so they are 6th in the Eastern Conference.
Okay.
So, but they are tied with the other teams in 7th and 8th, but they have got a game in hand.
Ah, nice. Okay.
They're 3rd in the East Division.
Right. Okay.
That East Division does include the Ottawa 67, so we're just miles out in front.
Yeah, true. So that we're coming towards the end of the podcast. We're about an hour and 40 minutes, so we've got about 5 minutes if you guys want to bring up any last call questions. It could be about anything hockey related. While hopefully some of you come up with some questions. I'm going to be doing a live stream tomorrow. I'm going to be scheduling that pretty much the second this live stream ends. Tomorrow is the Champions Hockey League final between the Frölunda Indians and Red Bull Munich. So I believe the face-off is at 6 PM British time. So I'll probably start the stream about 2:45, maybe 5:30 British time, which is about midday Eastern time. And an hour ahead of us usually for Central European time. So if you want to come and chat with me and hear what happens in the Champions Hockey League final, feel free. It'll be really awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm expecting Frölunda to win. Who do you think's going to win, Chris?
I mean, to be honest, I'm expecting Frölunda to win as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a betting man, I'd go Frölunda.
Yeah.
But if you do bet on Frölunda and they lose, that I'm not responsible for that. And on Wednesday, I've got another live stream, so that will cap off the 3 live streams in 3 days. The live stream on Wednesday is going to be the Team Great Britain national hockey team going up against Dinamo Riga of the KHL. They're coming to Coventry, and they're going to be playing a friendly match before the World Championships in Slovakia later this year. So I'm going to buy the webcast for that, give that a watch, and hopefully have a chat about Team GB and see what goes on. So yeah, it's going to be really good. I'm really looking forward to it. Got some good hockey lined up these next 2 days. That's awesome. So yeah, busy week. I'll probably get Whatever Happened 2 out at the weekend, but in terms of videos, that'll probably be it for this week because I'm doing 3 live streams. Like, I'm giving you enough content. You're welcome. So yeah, is there anything else that you guys would like us to talk about? Teemu Selanne has been brought up a few times. What do you think about Teemu Selanne? Oh, he's a great player. He seemed to retire every single year for like half a decade, but I mean, he was a solid player. Like, the fact that he scored, how many goals did he score in his rookie season? I think he scored like, was it 87? I want to say 87. Like, he holds the record for the most goals scored by a rookie in their rookie season with 87 goals. And he did it for the original Winnipeg Jets, which is incredible. I don't think that's ever going to be broken. 76, that's goals. It. 76. 76, that's almost a goal a game for an entire season. I don't think there's going to be many. When's the last time that we had a 76 goal scorer in the NHL? I'm not expecting you to find that out now.
I was going to say, I don't know.
No, that's fine. I'm not expecting you to find that out now, but we're probably talking like 20 or 30 years. So it's been like 20 or 30 years since we've had a 76 goal scorer in the league out of every single player, let alone a rookie, a guy that's just come into the league. To be fair, Teemu Selanne had played a few years in Finland, I believe. So
yeah, he had, yeah.
So he wasn't like an 18-year-old. He was like early 20s. But still, 76 goals. Whew. And then, of course, helping the Anaheim Ducks win the Stanley Cup in my Champs to Chumps. Watch that if you haven't done so already. It's an alright video. Any more news on Snoop Dogg and the Leafs? Not that I'm aware of. To be fair, I haven't really looked too much since I uploaded that video. Oh, we're dropping frames. That's great. Are we back? We're back. Sorry about that, guys. Bit of lag there. towards the end of the stream, so it doesn't really matter that much. Oh, no, we dropped frames completely again. Hello? Are you still there, Chris?
Hello. I'm still here.
Okay.
But you are, like, cutting out for me, so it might be worth wrapping up.
You know what? I'm going to wrap it up. Yeah. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you have enjoyed. Hopefully, I will see you guys in the next podcast next week, or in the live streams for the rest of the week. But yeah, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.